What so many other nations, advanced nations in that case, rejected. Nigerians are even debating it. In fact, prominent influencers in Nigeria have now taken themselves as the willing tool of those who want to decimate the farming process of Africa that has existed years. And now, today, the question is, what really is genetically modified seeds or organisms? GMO. What are they? How do they benefit us? What are the pros and the cons? Should we accept it, or should we reject it in the biggest sense of it? This is the question we answer today in the Diary of a Broken Man. Remember to subscribe, to like, to share, and to follow. Now, the debate over the genetically modified organisms, the GMOs, in Nigeria has intensified in recent years, driven by concerns about health, environment, and the socio-economic risks, as well as push for food security in a country facing significant agricultural challenges. So today we discussed a comprehensive overview of the dangers associated with GMOs and the specific reasons why they have become a contentious issue in Nigeria as of July 2025. Remember once more to subscribe, to like, to share, and to comment. So let's talk about the dangers of GMO, the key concerns we have about GMO. Number one is the health risks. Allergenicity. GMOs may introduce new proteins that could trigger allergic reactions. In fact, the World Health Organization (WHO) discourages using genes for known allergic organisms unless proven safe. But critics argue that testing is often inadequate. For instance, in 1996, study on GM soybeans showed a 27% increase in a major allergen, trypsin inhibitor, and a 2008 GM maize study revealed a new allergic protein. So it's not even safe, and the testing cannot be so much verified because the testings are not enough. Another one is potential toxicity. Studies on laboratory animals fed GM crops have shown hepatic, pancreatic, renal, and reproductive issues, raising concern about human health. For example, in 2007, a study by Seralini et al. Found signs of hepatorenal toxicity in rats fed with GM maize. So should we accept what even rats could not survive? Should humans consume what rats could not even survive? Another one is antibiotic resistance. Some GMOs use antibiotic resistance genes as markers during development, raising fears that genes could transfer to humans' gut bacteria, potentially increasing antimicrobial resistance (AMR). Although the risk is considered low, it remains a concern in regions with high antibiotic use like Nigeria. Remember that Nigerians by nature abuse antibiotics. You know, when somebody hits his leg on a wood, he takes antibiotic. In fact, we take antibiotics for a living, most Nigerians. And so when we have this issue of even naturally on a normal basis abusing antibiotics, what is the protection we get when we begin to take something that can spike the resistance of antibiotics? So that when you get it seriously ill, you cannot even be treated because antibiotics cannot work on your body. Next one is carcinogenicity and the long-term effects. So critics cite the lack of long-term human studies, noting that herbicides like glyphosate used with GM crops are classified as potentially carcinogenic. So this is not even something that should even be accepted by anyone with the right senses. So, by the International Agencies for Research on Cancer, IARC, exposure to herbicides such as the 2,4-4-D and the Camber linked to GM crops has been associated with the non-Hodgkin lymphoma and the birth defects. There are so many defects to this. I don't even know why we are debating this in 2025. There are a plethora of countries that have rejected this even from the onset. So when it became a debate in Nigeria, and the people who should be talking about the health of Nigeria, people who spent their whole image is about telling people what to eat and what not to eat, are now the people propagating GMOs and trying to subliminally tell Nigerians that it is okay. And I wonder how Nigerians become so gullible that they can easily be bought. You see, somebody who you think is very intelligent, all of a sudden, mere looking at his steps, you see that he has been bought and paid for. It's uncalled for. It is painful, so to speak. Let's continue. The dangers. Another one is nutritional concerns. While some GMOs like the golden rice are engineered to enhance nutrition, example the vitamin A, critics argue that unintended changes in nutritional profiles could occur, as seen in some pleiotropic effects where genetically modified crops developed unexpected toxic or allergic properties. So you can't even control the outcomes of these genetically modified organisms. They can spiral into something more dangerous and sinister to the health. And not when we talk about this, the danger, we are still coming to that. It's not even about planting them now. The problem is that it will affect the planting of every other thing that grows in the vicinity. Next one is the environmental risks. Biodiversity loss. Genetically modified crops can cross-pollinate with non-GM or wild plants, leading to contamination and loss of genetic diversity. In Nigeria, where smallholder farmers rely on diverse local seed varieties, this is a significant concern. For example, in Canada, genetically modified canola contamination has made it nearly impossible to grow non-genetically modified oilseed rape. Now, the next one is the super weeds and the super pests. Herbicide-tolerant genetically modified crops, such as those resistant to glyphosate, example, Monsanto Roundup Ready crops, have led to evolution of super weeds resistant to herbicides since 1996. In fact, 59 weed species globally have developed glyphosate resistance. Similarly, insects like the cotton bollworm has evolved resistance to GM-BT crops, as reported in 2024 study. Now, increased pesticide use, because the problem is not about creating the super weed and the super this, super that. The problem is that it will now have its own particular pesticide, and the continuous use of these, pesticides are naturally unhealthy. So when you begin to continuously use them on the land, you kill the nutrients from the land. The land becomes infertile again. So increased pesticide use. While genetically modified crops were designed to reduce pesticide use, data shows a 244% increase in herbicide use in Canada from 1994 to 2021 due to genetically modified crops adaptation. In Nigeria, this could exacerbate environmental pollution and harm non-target organisms like pollinators and aquatic ecosystem. Soil and ecosystem damage. Genetically modified crops paired with herbicides like glyphosate can degrade soil health and disrupt ecosystem. For instance, in Nigeria, the National Cotton Association reported in 2024 that farmlands planted with genetically modified seeds showed no germination of other plants even after 4 years, indicating potential soil degradation. I said this before. If we use some of these pesticides, we risk killing the land, sapping the land of its nutritions and nutrients, which will affect farmers. And we are not that organized agricultural state that we can know what to do. Unintended ecological effects. Pleiotropic effects, where genetic modifications lead to unforeseen consequences, can disrupt ecosystem. For example, GM herbicide-tolerant crops have reduced plant diversity, impacting species like the monarch butterfly by destroying their habitats. Another one is socioeconomic and ethical concerns, dependency on corporations. GM seeds are often controlled by multinational companies like the Monsanto, which critics argue promotes dependency on corporate seed supplies. In Nigeria, this threatens smallholder farmers' autonomy and food sovereignty, and they may be unable to survive or save seeds for replanting due to patent restrictions. Another one is economic risks. The National Cotton Association of Nigeria reported in 2024 that GM cotton seeds did not sufficiently increase yields compared to varieties, which undermines the claim of economic benefits. Farmers also face higher costs for GM seeds and associated agrochemicals. Another problem is food sovereignty. Critics, including the GMO-Free Nigeria Alliance, argue that GMOs violate food sovereignty by prioritizing corporate interest over local agricultural practices. You see, this is particularly relevant in Nigeria, where 70% of the population are living on small-scale farming system. Another one is the contamination of non-GM crops. Crop cross-pollination risk could compromise organic and non-GM farming, affecting Nigeria's ability to export to the global market, because many European countries, about 19 of them, ban this, and it will affect our export. I don't know if those in the government are even looking at this at all. Another one is regulatory safety gaps, the inadequate testing. Critics argue that GMO safety assessments rely heavily on industry-funded studies, which may downplay risks. In Nigeria, the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC, stated in June 2024 that insufficient research supports GMO safety. So the research that supports this is not even sufficient, but they went on to say it is good. Another one is weak biosafety framework. Nigeria's Biosafety Act of 2015 has been criticized as industry-friendly, with the National Biosafety Management Agencies, the NBMA, allegedly populated by GMO proponents. This raises concerns about the impartial regulation that goes on there. Another one is lack of labeling. GMO in Nigeria are not consistently labeled, especially in open markets where most citizens shop. This limits consumer choices and transparency, as noted by the GMO-Free Nigeria Alliance. So these people know what they are doing. They masquerade these things and put them up in the market for people to buy in the open market without properly labeling them. So there are so many shady things about this GMO that needs to be revealed. So many shady things. So the problem now and the question now is, why is GMO becoming an issue in Nigeria? Why? Especially lately. Why? The first answer to this is one, the recent approval and the commercialization. Nigeria has rapidly expanded GMO adoption, approving crops like the pod borer resistant cowpea Sampi 20T in 2019 and the teller maize in 2023. As one of the 6 African countries planting GMOs, alongside Ethiopia, Malawi, South Africa, Sudan, and Eswatini, Nigeria's push for commercialization has sparked debate. The NBMA's approval of the GMO often seems rushed. has or seen as rush has raised suspicion about external influence from biotech companies and the foreign interests, particularly given Nigeria's role as model for GMO adoption in Africa. The next one is public health and environmental concerns. This is why it has become a hot problem now, because the health of the people are at risk. In November 2024 public hearing by the House of Representatives Committee on Agricultural Production highlighted widespread concerns about GMO's health and environmental impact. The GMO-free Nigeria Alliance representing 200 groups called for a complete ban, citing risks like cancer, EMR, and biodiversity loss. Experts like the Christobek Amua have labeled GMOs as biological weapons linked to insecurity, alleging that foreign interests create hunger scenarios to put GMOs. This resonates in regions like Benue State and so many other regions where we have farmer-header clashes, as they say, terrorism being funded and the named farmer-header clashes. Okay, so these conflicts prevent famine, amplifying fear of dependency on GM seeds. Another one is the interagency conflict. In June 2024, NAFDAC Director General Mojisola Adeyeye publicly stated that GMO are unsafe due to insufficient research, clashing with NBMA pro-GMO stance. This public dispute fueled distrust in regulatory oversight and heightened public skepticism, activism, and public awareness. The anti-GMO campaign led by groups like GMO-Free Nigeria Alliance have gained traction, emphasizing health risk, environmental damage, and loss of food sovereignty. These campaigns argue that Nigeria's socio-economic context, with its reliance on open markets, makes GMO regulation and labeling impractical. Now, environmental and farmer groups have linked GMO to broader issues like insecurity, alleging that external forces exacerbate conflict in some regions in Nigeria just to sell this idea of GMO dependence. Another one is the global context and local reliance. In fact, over 42 countries, including 19 European countries, as we speak today, have banned GMO, citing health and environmental risks. Nigeria's adoption contrasts with cautious approaches in countries like Rwanda, like Tanzania and Zambia, which prioritize biosafety. The global divide amplifies local concerns about Nigeria's direction. Where are we headed, Nigeria? The failure of the GM cotton to deliver promised yields, as reported by the NACOTAN in 2024, has undermined confidence in GMO benefits, reinforcing arguments for traditional or organic farming solutions. The political and economic pressure, that is another problem. Prominent proponents of this GMO, including the NBMA and the government, argue that climate change and low yields are the reason why GMO are the best for us to use. Because a GMO crop covers 206.3 million hectares of land across 27 countries in the world. So critics argue that Nigeria's adoption reflects pressure from biotech companies and Western interests, potentially leading to food colonization by prioritizing corporate control seed over local variety. Now, the current development as of today, Now, you notice that in the recent Twitter brawl, some influencers who people listen to for advice on health have become the proponents of GMO. Instead of telling people the dangers of GMO now, they are now subtly pushing the GMO on the people. Another one is public hearing and policy debates. The 2024 hearing underscores the divide between the pro-GMOs and the anti-GMOs. Another one is farmer experiences. Farmers have reported that there is no difference. In fact, the only problem is that GMO kills their products, reduces the nutrients in the land, and so many other dangers reported by the farmers. So even the farmers are now shouting for this to be, for moratorium to be placed on this. Another one is civil society is pushing back. The SERAP and GMO Free Nigeria Alliance, all of them have been on the back of the government shouting and wailing, stop this, stop this. So the problem is that the danger of GMO in Nigeria centers on potential health risks. This is number one. The allergenicity, the toxicity, the AMR, these are health issues that it comes with. Environmental impact, biodiversity loss and super weeds, pesticide overuse, and so on. And then the socio-economic concerns where which creates corporate dependency, loss of food sovereignty, and so on. The issue has gained prominence due to recent GMO approval, regulatory conflict, and the growing public awareness of risk amplified by activists campaign, and global bans. While proponents argue that GMOs are essential for food security, critics highlight Nigeria's unique agricultural context and the need for rigorous, independent safety assessments. So it's not even something we need to be sitting on the fence for. We should go all in and condemn this. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Do you think GMOs are good for the health, good for the society of Nigeria, for the farmers, the local farmers, or do you think it should be abolished in Nigeria? And do you think it's the cause of these recent killings going on around the northeastern part of Nigeria? What do you think? Let me know in the comment section. Remember to subscribe, to like, to share, and comment. This remains the diary of a broken man, and I will see you on the next one.